Hey everybody, Chris Clark here. Top of the ACC looks mighty familiar this week. Louisville, Duke, and Florida State all held serve, but things are starting to get really interesting and complicated in the battle for that fourth spot. Of course, the top four teams in about a month going to earn a double bye in the ACC tournament, so a fourth place in the standings could be crucial for teams' NCAA tournament chances. And that means, man, we've got a lot to get to in this week's chase for the championship. So let's jump right into it, shall we? All right, Louisville and Wake Forest. They are on opposite ends of the ACC standings. Couldn't get further apart. But the Cardinals, man, they had a tough time dealing with the Demon Deacons. WEHT's Randall Parmley is there covering the Cards. Randall.
Well, it was supposed to be relatively easy for the now fifth-ranked Louisville Cardinals last night against Wake Forest, right? Well, think again. Sure, the Cardinals have won 8 in a row and just finished up a 2-game road trip with a 20-point win at NC State. The Demon Deacons, however, were not impressed. Wake gave Louisville all it could handle last night before eventually falling to the Cards 86-76. In fact, Wake Forest dominated the first half, shooting 60%, and they actually led by 12 at the break. The second half, however, was a different story. The Cards used an 18-5 run to take the lead and knock down 6 triples in the second half alone. Louisville is now 11-1 in conference play for the first time since 1993 when they won the old Metro Conference. How many of us remember the Metro? Up next for Louisville, it's another home game on Saturday when they host Virginia. Covering the Louisville Cardinals, I'm Randall Parmley.
Thanks a lot there, Randall. Louisville has only lost once this season inside the best place of all to play, the KFC Yum Center. God, I got to get out there. They look to keep that momentum rolling against Virginia on Saturday at 4. Then the Cardinals head down to Atlanta to square off against Georgia Tech. That one on Wednesday at 8. And Duke, they're making those back-to-back losses to Clemson and Louisville seem like a distant memory. Yes, the Blue Devils have now won 4 in a row, with the last 2 coming in hostile environments on the road. Duke got off to a slow start in the Carrier Dome against Syracuse, but came back to take a 4-point lead at the half and would go on to win it 97-88. Freshman Vernon Carey Jr. had a big night, scored 26 points and grabbing 17 boards. 3 days later, the Blue Devils found themselves even further north, taking on Boston College and Chestnut Hill, and the Eagles swallowed them up early and led at halftime. But Duke got it together in the second half, going on to win that one 63-55. Trey Jones led the way for the Blue Devils, scoring 18. Vernon Carey Jr., another double-double, 17 points, 10 rebounds. Coach K says his team just needed to remember to be strong around the rim.
When you're by the bucket, you don't try to shoot, you try to score. It's a big difference, you know. You're trying to shoot, you might, there's the bucket, you might go here. You try to score, you're going in here. So you're either going to get the bucket, fouled, or both. Here, you're not going to get a call because you haven't worked for it. Like, it's not like we were getting fouled. We were shooting the ball. And then what happens then is there's a lot of stuff underneath, body-wise. And so if you're just shooting it, you're shooting at a moving target because you're going to be hit. Whereas if you're trying to score, you're right there. Anyway, it makes sense. I've been doing it for 45 years. There's a big difference between shooting and scoring by the bucket. Winning teams score the ball. They don't shoot the ball by the bucket. And we didn't do that tonight.
I'll just sum that up for you. Don't go weak to the rim. There you go. You're appreciated. Good. Don't worry, Coach K. I'll send the bill later. Things are about to get real interesting for the Blue Devils. They're going to travel up the road to Chapel Hill to take on their arch rivals, UNC. That's Saturday at 6, and then it's a top 10 showdown at Cameron Indoor Stadium on Monday night at 7 when Florida State comes a-calling on them. All right, after that game against Duke and Chestnut Hill, Boston College will hit the road for 2 weeks. Well, not for two in the next week, rather. They're going to tip off in Blacksburg against Virginia Tech on Saturday at noon, and then they're going to head even further south to visit Miami. That one's on Wednesday at 7. Meanwhile, Syracuse, they had the lead for most of the second half when they hosted Duke at the Carrier Dome over the weekend. But as WSYR Stephen Fanti reports, once the Blue Devils got the lead, the Orange they couldn't quite come back.
Well, the entire complexion of the Syracuse Duke game changed in the final minute of the first half. SU had led for the first 19 minutes of the contest, but then the Blue Devils scored the final 6 points of the first half, 7 of the first 9 points in the second half to go up by 9, and then Duke pretty much remained in control the rest of the way. You do have to wonder, though, if the outcome would have been different had SU shot better than 1 for 12 from three-point range in that first half.
We played just as bad as it gets, I think, shooting the ball, and, that's what we rely on. And to be, 5-6 points with 4 or 5 minutes left is, it's a good sign. I mean, you want to win those, but we're getting a lot better as a team early on in the year. I don't think we would have been able to fight back like that.
Well, we're on and we're making threes and we're making the shots that, we usually make. We can beat anybody in the country. And, I feel like if we made a lot of the shots that we usually do, we would have been even closer and probably won the game tonight. But credit to Duke, they played a really great game.
I thought we fought hard. We missed threes early. We need to make some. I thought we had some pretty good looks, but we've got to make some of those to compete. Duke's very good. They're really good. We had a little gap there where they got the lead, and we just couldn't overcome that.
So Syracuse sits at 6-5 in conference play. The Orange still has 2 big opportunities remaining on its schedule at Florida State and at Louisville. But up next, a visit from Wake Forest on Saturday. Covering Syracuse, I'm Stephen Fonte.
Thanks a lot, Steve. Great stuff as always. Syracuse should be well rested for their next game. They've had the week off after that loss to Duke. Then they'll stay at home this Saturday to take on Wake Forest, like you said, at 8. And then the Orange host NC State. That one coming up Tuesday at 7. Meanwhile, Florida State was on a 10-game winning streak until Virginia took them down. But as WMBB's Courtney Mims reports, the Seminoles, they bounced back to win 2 in a row. Courtney?
According to head coach Leonard Hamilton, the number 8 Florida State men's basketball team hasn't peaked just yet. In fact, he said after Monday night's 65-59 win over North Carolina, he can't even see the top. And that's because he has so many promising freshman and sophomore talent like Patrick Williams, who helped lead the team Monday night with 14 points and a career-high 9 rebounds. In fact, he only missed 1 shot on the night. The Seminoles also dominated defensively in the game, and that was enough to win this one over North Carolina. Hamilton said this team is still getting better each and every game.
The good thing about our team, as I see it, is, from my standpoint, is that we still have a lot of room for growth. We still got 6 new guys, and you can tell that sometimes we sputter a little bit. If this team can continue to keep working and developing and adjusting to these types of moments as we move through the remainder of the year, hopefully we can have something to be proud of at the end of the season.
The Seminoles get ready to host Miami for a rematch on Saturday. Then they'll take on number 7 Duke on Monday. Reporting on Florida State, I'm Courtney Mims.
All right, let's take a look at those tip-off times for the Noles. Florida State staying at home this weekend, like you said, to host their Sunshine State rivals, Miami, on Saturday. That one is at noon. And then they'll look to knock off the Blue Devils on their own court when they visit Duke on Monday. That one tips off at 7. And it doesn't get any easier for North Carolina after that loss to Florida State. The Heels host their arch rivals, the Duke Blue Devils, on Saturday at 6. And then they'll head west to take on Wake Forest on Tuesday at 8. The Tar Heels say that hard-fought game against Florida State will be a big help this weekend against Duke.
We're good enough to win games, to beat the best teams in the league, and I just think we have to put it together for 40 minutes. I mean, we do some good things for a half or maybe 35 minutes, but you got to play the whole 40 to be able to win games in this league.
And it's just surreal just to be in this moment, and I mean, I'd be lying if I'm sitting right here telling you I haven't been thinking about it all week, and I'm just excited.
It's just crazy to finally be a part of this rivalry, finally to step foot on the court and play against these guys. And it's kind of nerve-wracking, but it'll be fun.
I didn't really grow up watching this rivalry. Didn't really start watching college basketball until I started getting recruited. But, I mean, I said earlier, I went to the game last year, and at that point, I was like, I want to be a part of this.
It's nothing I can truly say to prepare our team to be playing like. They have to just live in the moment, be ready to play, and just do what they can do.
What we're doing, and I think every team that goes through tough times, I've just been very fortunate. I haven't had to do it very often. You just try to work every day and see if you can get better and get a little better in one area, get a little better in another area, put your finger in the dike, and then try to find another place to put the other one too.
See what's going to happen this week. And at Virginia, they had a week to rest up from last week's big win over Florida State. WRIC's Natalie Calabate covering the Cavs. Natalie?
Guys, a layoff of over a week wasn't a problem for the Virginia Cavaliers last night as they defeated the Clemson Tigers 51-44 at John Paul Jones Arena. Braxton Key's shooting was a major factor as the senior scored 19 points, made 4 3-pointers, and pulled down 8 rebounds. The Tigers, though, clawed back into the game and trailed by only 2, 36-34, with just 6 minutes to go.
We played some really good basketball, defended for the most part well, and then their matchup 3-2 or what have you gave us some trouble.
But Key unlocked the Clemson defense late, hitting 2 more 3-pointers to help UVA finish off the win. Virginia's last 8 games have all been decided by 8 points or less, so the late drama is actually becoming routine for Jay Huff and his teammates.
How many times have we been in that position? I think we're almost used to it by now. We almost expect it. If a team doesn't come back, we're like, something wrong here? I know every time I go to church or anything like that, someone will come up to me and say, like, make my blood pressure rise a little bit.
Huff had a double-double of 10 points and 10 rebounds, and Mamadi Diakite finished with 13 points and 8 rebounds. Their inside play was crucial for Tony Bennett's team.
Their length is real. Jay's is, and they're both bouncy. And I like that I thought this was one of their better defensive rebounding games, and that's big.
Virginia is now 15-6 on the season and 7-4 in league play. Next up for the Hoos is a trip to Louisville on Saturday at 4 o'clock. Covering Virginia, I'm Natalie Calabat.
Thank you, Natalie Calabat. Virginia is going to get a chance to knock off a top 10 team when they travel to Louisville to face the Cardinals on Saturday. That one's at 4, and then the Cavs head back home to host Notre Dame on Tuesday. That one is at 9. And after that showdown with Virginia, Clemson will look to gain some ground on the teams around them in the standings. The Tigers take on Notre Dame on Sunday at 6, and then they'll travel to Pittsburgh to face the Panthers on Wednesday at 9. WSBA's Pete Yannity covering the Tigers for us. Pete?
After a run of 3 straight wins against Tobacco Road teams in January, Clemson has suddenly lost 4 of their past 6, and the offense has become an issue, especially in back-to-back losses last Saturday at Wake Forest, and then in a 51-44 loss against Virginia on the road on Wednesday night, in which the Tigers were unable to manage better than 25% from beyond the arc. While Amir Sims has been pretty much a constant in the offense, he had 16 in the loss against Virginia. The Tigers, as Brad Brownell pointed out after that Wake Forest loss, have certainly lost their rhythm offensively.
We have to really work to score. We don't have some dynamic guy that can kind of bail us out at the end of the clock. Our team is an execution team. If we're not executing well and working together, we struggle.
So Clemson finds itself back to 500 at 11-11 overall and 5-7 in the ACC as they get ready for a Sunday night visit from Notre Dame. It's a key ball game, if nothing else, for positioning for the upcoming ACC tourney. The Irish will come in on a 3-game winning streak and at 5-6 in the league, a half a game ahead of the Tigers in the standings. Covering the Clemson Tigers, I'm Pete Yannity.
All right, thanks a lot there, Pete. After looking thoroughly outmatched against Louisville over the weekend, losing by 20, NC State hit the road to take on Miami. The Hurricanes got out to an early lead, but NC State took control with a 15-1 run in the first half. The Wolfpack went from trailing by 5 to leading by 9, thanks to some big buckets by Devin Daniels. The Hurricanes tried to come back in the second half, but NC State held them off and went on to take this from final 83-72. Guard C.J. Bryce led the way for the Pack with a double-double, scoring 22, pulling down 11 boards. Markel Johnson had a double-double of his own with 19 and 12 assists.
First half, I thought Devin Daniels was really good. And then when you look at the second half, I thought Braxton Beverly and C.J. Bryce and obviously Markel Johnson had a special night for us. We had some adversity, and we fought through. And that's what we've been talking about with these guys is that throughout every game, you're going to have some type of adversity. How do you respond? You know, when they cut the lead to 3, we found out a lot about our team. So happy to get it. The league is as balanced probably as it's been in a while, and just to get a road win is really good for us. We got a lot of basketball left in us, and these guys got a lot of fight in them. I told them after the game, I said, look, on every game, I'm going to be on high intense. and I'm gonna be after it. And I was after it tonight. I was really after it, and that's where I want those guys to respond to the remaining amount of games that we have in the league. And we were able to stop the bleeding a little bit. You know, nobody wants to lose 3 in a row. Our league is crazy. When you look at our league, everybody in our league outside of probably Duke, Florida State, and Louisville have had some highs and lows where they've won a bunch of games but then lost a bunch of games in a row. And it's how do you respond? And I thought our guys did a great job responding.
Going to make that ACC tournament something special. Miami faces a tough test this weekend. They're going to head up to Tallahassee to take on Florida State. That one tips off at noon on Saturday. Then it's back home for a matchup against Boston College. That one on Wednesday at 7. And after a slow start, Notre Dame is starting to gain some momentum, little momentum there on the ground, on the teams rather, at the top as WTTV's Dave Griffiths reports. The Irish now on a 3-game win streak. Dave?
Could Notre Dame finally have turned the corner? After a 2-6 start, the Irish are now winners of 3 in a row in the ACC, 2 of those over this past week. Coincidentally, both of those by the same score, 80-72. First up was Georgia Tech, and as you would expect, another double-double from John Mooney led the way. 10 rebounds and 28 points. That matched a season best for the senior big man. Also secured a regular season sweep of the Yellow Jackets. Then came Pitt, and another strong performance from Mooney, his 18th double-double of the year, 17 and 10. The Irish's leader in the points column, though, was TJ Gibbs with 21, including a stellar performance beyond the three-point line, hitting 5 of his 8 attempts. Offense certainly not the problem for Mike Bray's squad. They are second in the ACC, behind only Duke, averaging 77 points per game.
We're all within striking distance, especially after getting these 3. So if we could keep plugging along and picking some off, we can be right there. And I tell you, at 1-4 going to Atlanta, we're a long way from 1-4 on that plane to Atlanta. I'm thinking like this could get real interesting. So proud of our group.
It's true, the road to 3 straight wins wasn't a murderer's row. Wake Forest, Georgia Tech, and Pitt all at home in South Bend. But now the Irish will have to go on the road to keep that streak alive, facing Clemson Sunday and Virginia on Tuesday. Covering Notre Dame, I'm Dave Griffiths.
Thank you, Dave. After 3 straight at home, Notre Dame will now hit the road. First up, Clemson on Sunday at 6, and then it's a quick turnaround, a trip to Virginia on Tuesday at 9. After their visit to South Bend, Pitt will return home for 2. They've got Georgia Tech on Saturday at 2, and then it's Panthers versus Tigers when Clemson visits on Wednesday. That one tips off at 9. And, you know, just a couple of weeks ago, Virginia Tech wasn't too far from the top of the ACC standings. But as WFXR's Jermaine Fell reports, the Hokies, they're heading in the wrong direction. They lost 4 in a row. Jermaine?
The Virginia Tech Hokies basketball team entering the week with a need for victory. And last Saturday, Tyrese Radford scored 18 points. But Virginia Tech couldn't overcome Devin Vassell and Florida State, falling 74-63 to the 5th-ranked Seminoles at Castle Coliseum. The loss marked a 3rd straight for the Hokies. Now, Florida State's Vassell scored a game-high 27 points and tied an ACC record by making all 7 of his 3-point attempts.
He was a big difference in the game, you know, not missing a shot. That's very hard. I mean, when he's a good player, and he knocked down shots that he needed to pull off the win, you know, at the time they needed it. So we just got to cut out the head of the snake, and today we really couldn't do that.
The biggest thing is he was comfortable in the first half, you know. We were guarding him, but we weren't affecting him, so he was just comfortable getting his own shot off. Yeah, there were some times where we just lacked energy. You know, we need to be better on the defensive end. But throughout the game, there were spurts where we were there, and we felt like that. We never felt like we were down or anything like that. So just at the end of the day, we couldn't get it done.
We're not playing bad basketball. We're just we're not making the plays necessary to win games. But continue to grind on it, and we got to snap out of it here.
Seeking a bounce-back victory, the Virginia Tech men's basketball team couldn't get it done in Atlanta, falling to the Yellow Jackets 76-57 on Tuesday night inside McComish Pavilion. It was the 4th straight loss for the Hokies. Now, Virginia Tech stumbled against Georgia Tech, marking the first time that Virginia Tech has suffered a loss to the Yellow Jackets since 2014 as their 6-game winning streak was snapped. Tech saw contributions from guard Tyrese Radford, who scored 12 points to lead the Hokies, and redshirt freshman Landers Nolley, who registered 10 points. Now the Hokies, they fall to 14-9 overall and 5-7 in the ACC. Now the Hokies will return to Blacksburg for a 3-game home slate, beginning with Boston College on Saturday at noon at Castle Coliseum. They're looking for a little revenge against the Eagles. Covering the Virginia Tech Hokies, I'm Jermaine Farrell.
As always, man, great stuff, Jermaine, great stuff. And after that matchup against Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech hitting the road to visit Pitt on Saturday at 2, and then it's back home for a big one. Louisville heading to Atlanta for an 8 o'clock tip-off on Wednesday. WJBF's Brendan Robertson is covering the Yellow Jackets there for that one. And Wake Forest picked up a win over Clemson, but they're still at the bottom of the ACC standings. But as WGHP's Danny Harden explains, they're about to get a huge boost from a returning player.
Welcome back, Sean D. Brown. Wake Forest really struggled while Brown sat out with an injury, losing 6 of 7. They missed his scoring, his tough defense, his leadership, his ability to have breakout games, like the 26 he dropped on Xavier or the 25 against A&T. Brown is healed up and back on the court for the Deacons.
I'm so happy for him just to be back out there on the court. I mean, missing that many games is tough for somebody like Sean D. We really missed him. We really needed him. You know, he's back. You got to get him going and get his conditioning up a little bit and just get ready to rock and roll from there.
I could see things from the side of the court that I didn't see when I was on the court, because, you know, you're on the court, your mind's racing. But, you know, off the court, I see things that the coaches see that I didn't see as a player.
It's a team game, and you go into every season preparing your team for all types of situations, and injuries are a part of sports, and they're unfortunate and a lot of times unforeseen, but it does create opportunities for other guys to create moments for themselves. And we've certainly had a lot of opportunities for guys to have their moments, and you know, we feel like it's made us a stronger team.
Brown gives Wake Forest another go-to guy, a player who can get you that key basket, especially at the end of tight games. Next up for Wake, a road trip Saturday night against Syracuse. Reporting on the Deacons, I'm Danny Harnden.
Thank you very much, Danny. That game at Syracuse tips off at 8 on Saturday. Then it's back to Winston-Salem to host North Carolina on Tuesday. That one tips off at 8 as well. Well, about a month left in the ACC regular season. And that means teams need to make a push if they want to get into that big dance this spring. Joining us now to break it all down, Jason Logan from Covers.com. The main event of the weekend is that Tobacco Road rivalry between Duke and North Carolina. However, this year's edition doesn't seem like a fair fight, if you're asking me and a bunch of people around here. Can the Heels step up against the Blue Devils at home is the question.
Yeah, maybe this is the turning point for their season here, but they're definitely playing better basketball right now. 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games, despite going 2 and 3 straight up in those. They got Cole Anthony back, and that's sparking this team a little bit. Generally, they've been a good bet against Duke. They've actually covered in 4 straight against the Blue Devils, 5 of the last 6, but as you alluded to, there is a big gap in talent between these two teams, and we are going to see North Carolina as a home underdog in this game, which is rare. We actually have to go all the way back to February 20th, 2014. That's the last time UNC was getting the points inside the Dean Dome against the Dukies. They were 2-point underdogs in that game, and they ended up winning 74-76. So if there is any game that North Carolina can get up for this season, this is the one. So I'm definitely going to be taking a close look at this point spread when it hits the board on Friday night.
Take the wins where I can get them, man. If they cover, that's a W as far as I'm concerned, man. Another great game in the ACC this Saturday sees the Virginia Cavaliers visiting the Louisville Cardinals. Virginia's won 9 in a row versus UL, but the Cardinals, man, they're playing some fantastic basketball heading into February. Can they end Virginia's head-to-head dominance?
Yeah, you're right. They're playing great basketball right now. An average margin of victory around 18 points over those wins over Clemson and Boston College and NC State. Cardinals kind of firing on all cylinders here on offense and defense. However, the one thing, they're playing sloppy basketball. They're not taking care of it. Almost averaging 14 turnovers during this winning streak, this red-hot run. And now they take on Virginia, which has its shortcomings on offense, but is still among the defensive elite. The Cavs have been a good bet against UL, covered in 6 of the last 10, but they've been an inconsistent play this season. Now, Cavaliers coming on, they had that big win over Florida State. That boosted their tournament resume. And if they can pick up a win here over Louisville, this pretty much punches their ticket to the big dance. So this is a huge game for Tony Bennett's team.
There's a lot of chatter about the bracket as we get closer to March. And there's a good possibility the ACC could send as few as 3 teams dancing come Selection Sunday, which just seems unreal to me. Now, which would be the conference's fewest NCAA team since 2000, getting technical here? Which other ACC school could sneak up into that field of 68 in your opinion?
Yeah, sure. I'm taking a close look here at the Clemson Tigers, and it's all going to depend on how this final month and a half of the season goes and if they can get over their road woes. Now, Clemson does have that marquee win over Duke, and they took care of business against Syracuse, which is another team that's trying to shoehorn past them into the big dance. they're set up pretty well here towards the end of the season because they get their toughest games at home. They get Louisville at home and they get Florida State at home. And if they end up winning one of those games, that definitely improves their chances of hearing their name on Selection Sunday. And should they win both those games, well, they're going to be in the big dance. The big problem is they have weaker opponents on the road, and that has been their kryptonite this season. They just can't get the job done as a visitor. 1-5 straight up, just 2-4 ATS on the road as a visitor this season. So Coach Brownell's going to have to kind of channel his inner Mad Max and see if he can make road warriors out of the Clemson Tigers.
That's a great reference there. I thought you were going to go full Zen with me, but pull it out with that road warrior reference. Thanks a lot, Jason. Hopefully we can see some of those teams really start to make their case for the tournament bid. Enjoy your basketball this weekend, man. All right, top of the standings look the same as it did this time last week, but there's a lot of movement in the middle here, if you will. It's a familiar three teams, like we said, in the front of the pack. Louisville tighten its grip on the top spot. Cardinals are an amazing 11-1, but hot on their tail. Duke and Florida State both sitting there at 9-2. Virginia making a push. The Cavaliers are now alone in fourth place at 7-4, and that's when things get really congested. Syracuse 6-5, NC State 6-6. Notre Dame made a big jump up in the standings. The Irish now 5-6, but their 5 teams are just a half game behind the Irish. We got Pitt, Boston College, Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, and Clemson all right in there at 5-7 in conference play. North Carolina moved up one spot, but the Tar Heels just 3-8. Right behind them at the bottom, Wake Forest and Miami both sitting there at 3-9. Of course, Duke and North Carolina might be on opposite ends of those standings right now, but that's not going to mean much when they get together on Saturday. You're not going to want to miss another exciting chase for the championship next week when we take a very close look at one of the best rivalries in all of sports, man. This thing is awesome. But that's not the only big game for the Blue Devils in the next few days. It's a top 10 showdown at Cameron Indoor Stadium on Monday when Florida State comes a-calling. But before either of those games tip off, this one could make a huge impact on Selection Sunday. Virginia can look to keep their momentum rolling when they visit Louisville on Saturday. That one is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see that one. But thanks for joining us at Chase for the Championship. Remember, you can watch every episode, a brand new one Thursday night at 7. And until next week, man, get out and watch some basketball. See you next Thursday.